faces east, but if it's facing the restaurant, it's going to be facing west, I would assume.
Your exhibits actually have east and west backwards. The drive-through is facing
West,
east.
you're correct.
Yeah.
I apologize. It's
Oh, no worries. Just want to make sure everyone knows what we're looking at.
the south side, which is the side that faces the hotel property. That's the back, at the back of the building, and that's more utilitarian. There is a canopy over the one of the exit doors for the staff. And then when you get to the west elevation, east elevation, which is the side that faces the side street, that one has the drive-through bump out with a little canopy there. Again, in terms of signage, on the east side, you'll see again there's that round logo right over the drop-off area. And top right corner, there's a very small sign again that says drive-through there. Again, it's just meant to, as people drive around the parking lot, they see that sign, it helps them to kind of orient themselves around the building where the drive-through is. The logos, I think it's important for Starbucks to have those logos on those two prominent ends of the building, because as people drive around the parking lot, they recognize that, that logo. Now, I'm going to go to the next sheet, which kind of gets into the actually, that's all the drawings, and I'm going to go right to the rendering. And I didn't want to go through, print out all the renderings. The first two sheets you have, sheet number 2 and 3, are like those elevation drawings that were colorized, and it's a perspective view. But I think the most better one to go to is sheet number 4, which is a perspective view of the front facade of the building, again, the side that faces the main road. And here, you can see the material that they're proposing to put is a very high-end metal panel system to clad the entire building. That's the black metal panel that you see. And then at the entranceway, it's, the wall is flanked by a wood type of material. So they're going to this kind of modern kind of look with a little bit of warmth where the entrance door is. And the canopy itself is also has a metal trim around the perimeter. Here you could see the Starbucks sign that I was pointing to, the main Starbucks sign. Again, I think you could see that it's very discreetly scaled. And then underneath the canopy, there's a little green sign with the number 4 next to it. Again, that's that little blade sign that would be located underneath the sign there, just saying welcome. The next sheet is page number 5. This is kind of the view looking at that front from the right side of the building where the canopy is. And you can see the outdoor patio area where you have some covered seating area as well as an open seating area. And towards the top of the building, above the building, you do see the logo again with that lettering for drive-through. Again, it's really meant to be seen a little bit further away for cars as they drive around the building, just for identity and getting an understanding where the drive-throughs are located around the building.
And so your renderings show the proposed signage at scale to the facade, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And I think in scale-wise, the round logo is 48 inches in diameter. And so when you look at it on the facade itself, I think it's prominent, but it's not overly scaled. It's again part of the prototype design. It's their standard dimensions, and you know, they're very, I think, design sensitive as a company. Again, this next page is page 6. It's showing you looking at that right side of the building as well as the rear side of the building, so the 3/4 view. And then when you get to view number 7, that's the drive-through side, which is the east side that would face the side. And we have one logo over the drive-through. And towards the front left corner, you can see that little word that says drive-through there. Again, it's really meant to be for orientation and wayfinding purposes. So I think that sort of shows you all the sort of main views of the building. And I'm going to go back to...
Can I interrupt you a minute while you're on the signs here? I'm a little confused. when you look at the front of the building, you have it says Starbucks.
That's right.
Right there. Actually, the same one I do. And then in the back, you have the logo, and then you have over the drive up to the left there, you have another one. Why wouldn't you have one above the Starbucks? Because I don't consider the ones above the drive-through or the back, especially the back one, much use at all.
Well, there isn't any in the back, but there's one on the left side and the right side of the building. So on
The
the
one in the
left
back, you're looking at it, to me, it's a little
Go to
excessive to me.
the page 5, right?
Right there.
You could see the front of the building as well as the right side because you're kind of looking at that three-quarter view. So the one on the right side, it helps people wayfind where the drive-through is as they approach the building and the parking lot from the right side. Even when you're driving down the highway, you'll recognize that sign because it's on that side of the building. So it helps a little bit more with the recognition. So now, could you add that logo in the front too? Sure you can, but Starbucks purposely put it on the sides because they felt that that's the side that's going to be most visible and most prominent in terms of recognizing the building as you drive around the building. Because the building is meant to be experienced three-dimensionally all the way around, not just always from the front. They felt it's important to have that logo on the right side and the left side of the building.
So that's the Starbucks standard then?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. And they're, you know, depending on the site, they'll work with the signage. And on this site, with this prototype design, you know, it's a freestanding building that you're going to see from all sides, and always locating on the right side and the left side. It's really meant to help you orient around the building to know that there's a drive-through that you're going to go around. Yeah. And that's really the main reason. They located those signs in that way. So you're really seeing multiple signs, but when you look at the rendering, I think you'll agree that it's tastefully done, appropriately scaled, and the quantity doesn't make it look like it's too busy right there. It's just in the right place. And, you know, some towns would consider that, again, like wayfinding, but I think it helps you orient yourself around the building. So again, overall sign, you can see there's Starbucks sign 1. It's that little blade sign underneath the canopy 2. There's the logo on the right side, the circle with the word drive-through on the right side, and then you have the same thing on the left-hand side. And that's the extent of the facade signs that we're requesting.
I'd like to ask you a question about the rear of the building.
Yes, sir.
As you said, it's quite utilitarian in its appearance. If you were to describe to the board and to the public who's looking at that backside, aside from people driving around the building, is that visible from the restaurant? Is it visible from the hotel?
Well, you'll definitely see it. That's the side that faces the hotel, and there's a driveway back there. There's more landscaping between the grassy area between the building and the driveway that goes around, the drive-through. The drive-through would circle around, so mostly people who drive around for the drive-through will see that side of the building. But you could see the Starbucks, they're like, well, we're not going to skimp here. They put all that nice, expensive material on the backside, too.
But it's not something that should be visible from people who are behind the property, presuming that we have the screening that we're anticipating.
That's right. This is, also this building is much, much shorter than previously Pooh Goddard School.
Right.
The roof would have been almost 2.5 stories tall relative to other house structure, whereas this one really is like no bigger than a one-story house.
I appreciate that. And this is the one we're focused on, so whatever we had before, we don't even consider.
Yeah, I think from a sense of scale, it is just 1 story tall, and the roof is actually flat. You are going to have rooftop equipment, and there is screening around the perimeter. I think it's more noticeable from the back elevation because you can see the screen material that wraps around the rooftop unit. Whereas when you look at it from the front, because it's set back, you really can't see it at all. One of the things that I do want to clarify in the planner's report, they thought that we have to request a variance for parapet height. But I think they were mistaken the height of the rooftop screen. The height of the rooftop screen above the roof parapet was 48 inches when you look at the elevation drawing. However, the parapet itself is only about 2'8" at the highest point. The roof kind of slopes, so the parapet, if you measure it where the roof is higher, it's going to be a little shorter. Where it's deeper, it's going to be a little taller. But it's right around 2'8" high, not 4 foot high. The height, I think the planner was looking at was a dimension pointing from the parapet, top of the parapet to the top of the roof screen here. That was 4 foot when you measure it in elevation.
Well, Mr. Horton, you're in luck. We have a new planner. Maybe she can chime in and give us her thoughts on that. Okay. We're not going to vote tonight, so we got plenty of time, but that's something that we do want to circle back on because it's an important variance. Thank you.
Just for the purposes of the that discussion here, if you refer to the elevation drawing A4.01, that all the elevation shows you the top of parapet height, which is 18 foot ½ inch above the first floor. And then top of the roof screen is 22 feet. So that was that 4 foot difference. If you look at the parapet and kind of look closer at the drawing, there's a dash line shown behind the wall. That's the outline of the roof surface. So if you measure that height, that's only approximately like 2 foot, 2'8". So that's the parapet height. So from my perspective, that shouldn't be a variance. If your parapet, I believe it was higher than 3 foot, I think was what was noted in the report, that would require variance, but we're not seeking a variance for the parapet. The screening is actually requested often by your township to help screen the rooftop units, especially if it's in a sensitive neighborhood such as this. So we did add that detail.
If I could, just a couple of follow-up questions real
Yes,
quick.
sir.
So there are no ovens, fryers, or any type of cooking equipment inside?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're just heating and doing the coffee? That's correct. Okay. And then on the mechanical rooftop equipment then, is that just your HVAC, and is it just a standard sound?
For cooling,
attenuation.
it's a small rooftop unit. It's only a 2,400 square foot building. And again, in most cases, you really, even if you looked at it, I think from the street, you'll barely be able to see the screen itself because it just pokes above the parapet a couple feet. But I think the fact that it is closer to the back elevation, having the screen there, you'll see the screen, and I think it's going to do its job screening the rooftop unit on the back side of the building. But you are, one of the things to keep in mind for residents that are behind the property, I think you'll see it on the site plan when the engineer goes back on. Our building is quite a distance away from the rear property line. And again, I think the visual impact is going to be very minimal.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Horton, I had a question on there was lighting that was behind a beam. I think it's number 6, metal canopy with integrated lighting. Can you speak to that? Is it like a low voltage kind of landscape array?
I'm sorry, which drawing could you?
It's indicated as number 6, and it's called a metal canopy with integrated lighting. It looks like there's a beam and there's some inlaid lighting.
If you look at this rendering here on page 5.
I'm on page 6, actually.
It's number 6 on 6, sir.
Page 6. So page 6, like it's number 6 is the metal canopy, which is the, you see the sort of the linear horizontal element, that's the roof that overhangs top of the patio area. What they mean by integrated lighting is that underneath the ceiling of the canopy is going to have some downlights for evening, when you're sitting out.
So it doesn't cast light up,
No, it's
everything's
just for
focused
downlight.
down.
That's right.
That was my question, thank you.
Yeah, that's correct.
When you said sitting out there, isn't that the exit for the employee?
If you look at this right side elevation where there's glass, there's one man door there. And if you're inside, if you look at the floor plan, that's where the lounge area is inside the building, in the floor plan. And you'll see on that floor plan, there's a little door. There's a man door there. So if you're inside, you bought your coffee, instead of coming out the front and then walking around the sidewalk, you could actually come out that door or go back in that door.
Out the door labeled number 13 on page 6, under 6. So you're saying
13 is in the back.
I think, yeah, this is looking at the number 13 is the back of the building, And that's referring to the man door that's off the storage work area.
So the canopy does what?
This little canopy is just to keep the rain out for staff as they go in and out.
For staff, right.
Yeah. That's correct.
On the lighting, last meeting there was discussion about security lighting would be on 24/7. Could you point out which of those light fixtures would be?
I think the only lights that are going to be there is underneath the canopies. You see there's a canopy underneath the, over the rear exit door. And then we spoke about the canopy that wraps around the covered porch. And then that canopy that covers the patio area, if you go back to page 5, it kind of wraps around all the way towards the front. So it's one canopy that starts at the front door and wraps all the way around and creates that side covered porch area. Those areas would have lights underneath. We need a couple things from a code perspective. The code, building code requires you to have a light there at every single exit door that has an emergency battery ballasted light, so that at nighttime, in the evening, if there is a power outage, you always have a light at the exit door that people could use to find a way out, and it stays illuminated for at least an hour and a half. That's the emergency light. Some of these lights here will be on at night, so it provides some little bit of like ambiance, in that area. But beyond that, we weren't planning to do any other lights at the moment. Sometimes I know buildings, they put in like floodlights at the corners. We're not proposing to do anything like that.
The wall sconces, those are light fixtures as well?
Number 9 here, if you look at page 5, all the way to the left of the front entrance door, you see a keynote that says number 9, sconce. It's a blank wall space, so it gives you a decorative effect and helps to light that part of the sidewalk. Again, it's just more of a decorative light.
Right. Does that shine up and down or just down?
It just shines out.
The sign shines out.
Yeah, because it's a vertical element.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, do me a favor, can you go back to page 6, please? Where the service entrance is and you have the canopy up there. What's the size of that canopy? It looks pretty big.
This canopy, I could give you an exact dimension.
Yeah, I'd like to know, please.
Scale. It's funny, we hardly use scale at the office anymore because we're doing everything on CAD. The only time I use it is when we have these board meetings. The canopy itself, if you look at 8201, there's a dashed outline of it, and it is, let me get the right scale on here. It sticks out from the wall 4 feet, and the width of it is 14 feet wide. So I think it gives a space for you to, it's just 4 feet sticking out, from the wall.
So it basically comes out the 4 feet to cover the sidewalk there? Yeah. Okay. Just looks a little bigger on the picture here than,
Yeah, I think so, because honestly, it's such a small building, it seems like a big element.
Any other questions from the board? Rich, you good?
I'm good.
All right, board professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, just a couple of questions for you. The canopy that is shown on the west side of the building, is that open air?
Yes.
Will there be any time that, what I'm thinking of are those portable walls that, almost like a tarp that gets dropped down to make it more of an all-season room in the wintertime? That would not be,
It's not
Play
it's
here.
not proposed. And
Okay.
I think if the town requires some sort of like administrative approval to add those kind of elements, we'll notify Starbucks that if they do ever decide to do something like that, they will have to get approval if that's your requirement.
Okay.
But, we're not proposing to put any type of, temporary plastic screen or anything like that.
Okay. Let me ask you a question about the rooftop equipment.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to your plan that shows the roof layout, the plan view? I guess what I'm questioning is the rooftop equipment positioned to the rear or to the south side, the hotel side of the building?
That's correct.
So away from 22?
That's correct.
And how high does that screening project above the roof line? Or above
Of the parapet.
the
4 foot.
parapet?
Exactly 4 foot above the parapet.
4 foot above the parapet, so the screen itself would be almost 7 feet from the base of the roof.
Yes, that's correct.
And what is the screening material going to be made of?
Similar slatted metal material that's going to match the facade material in color.
So it's going to be a black metal material? Okay,
We may value engineer to like a low maintenance type of like fiber cement type of board, type of slats too, but the intent is to do that dark color that matches the facade. A lot of times those little details get chopped out during construction.
okay. Mr. Vecchio had raised a couple good questions about the security lighting, and that was raised at the last meeting as well. On the rear, now I got to figure out what on sheet 7 of your rendering, the man door out the back of the building shows what looks like a floodlight over the building.
That over the top of the door?
That's what I meant, over the top of the door.
Just above the door, that one's an emergency light fixture.
Okay.
With a battery ballast, and all the exit doors are required to have that. Where there's a canopy, right, with the at the main entrance, you have glass wall. So since we can't put those type of wall-mounted light fixture on there, we're gonna mount that underneath the canopy, and we'll have a battery ballasted so that it will provide that emergency light. So that would occur at the main entrance door where the double door is, and then on the side here you have that side door from the lounge area going out to the patio. That would have a light that would be mounted to the ceiling also.
And in this case, there is what looks to be a small canopy projection. Can that light not be mounted under that canopy instead of,
This one, I
Right.
could eliminate that light and mount one underneath the canopy and do the similar type of light fixture there. You know that one note number 9, those are the vertical decorative light. Again, Starbucks spaced that out along the back sidewalk area, so as they walk around, there's a little bit of glowing light along that sidewalk for the staff. That will be there. But if aesthetically, if you feel you would like to see that disappear and put it underneath the canopy, I think we could do that.
yeah, I'd hate for that to be an eyesore from the Morgan Lane approach to Route 22. So if that could be eliminated and recessed, I think that would be the board's preference. Last question I have has to do with signage. We heard that there are, I think, 5 facade signs being proposed, where, is it 2? 2 are permitted. Am I correct, though, that the square footage of the signage package is less than what is the max allowed by the ordinance?
It's considerably less.
So you're under the square footage, but you're over the number of signs.
That's correct.
And at the last meeting, I had asked, and I forget her name, but the representative from Starbucks,
Yes.
if there was an opportunity to eliminate any of the facade signs, would they consider it? And she made it sound like they would be open to that discussion. In your opinion, are there any signs on the facade now that Starbucks could go without if that was a request of the board?
Personally, like, because whenever I go to a Starbucks, the 2 signs, the round logo that's on the left and the right side, I think those are really important because as you approach the building, you approach the building from those 2 sides. And so being able to get a marker saying that, when you're in any shopping center, sometimes you don't know which building is which. That's going to clearly tell you, here's Starbucks, because there's no other sign. And it's just high enough at the top of the parapet, but it's really small. But it's not really meant to be there as a big billboard. It's really meant to say, hey, this is us, and this is kind of where we are. And then the little or a drive-through, you kind of see that as you get closer to the building and go, oh, okay, that's how the drive-through goes around. And so it's a wayfinding tool. So we have that one sign in the front facade, right, where the canopy is at the main entry, that says the Starbucks, so we're counting that as one sign. So that's very important. We think the two logos on the side, the round logos, are very important. So that's really 3 signs. Now, whether you want to call this word drive-through a sign, then we're counting that as 4. And then the other sign on the other side that says drive-through, that's 5. Now, I think there's another sign, which is that blade sign that's underneath the canopy that just hangs down and says welcome. It's a very tiny little sign. If you count that, that's 6. So that's all we have in terms of signage.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I'll start with, and follow up on what Mr. Burr had said about, or had questioned about the parapet height. I pulled up the definition for building height, which is where the, in the bulk table that came up, I believe. And it allows for, it says, in the case of a parapet and similar projection above the roof line. So it's not just limited to the architectural function of the parapet wall you have here for the purposes of the roof-mounted utilities. I would consider the screening a similar projection as the definition includes. I believe the plans show about 3.5 feet. I think you said 4 feet is the highest point of that roof screening. So I would consider that variance still necessary.
Well, if you say the screen, the top of the screen is the height of the building, then that's the new height of the building, and that wouldn't be, again, that would be well under the minimum required height, and therefore it wouldn't be considered a variance. But in all due respect, rooftop screening is never considered a parapet in any of the applications I've ever been involved in.
I'd just like to clarify that the definition doesn't just say parapet, it says parapet or similar projection, and I think this is a projection above the building, the roof line. So that's where I disagree a little bit. But I'll leave it to the board if they want to consider that, as part of the bulk variance requirement. As far as the, you discussed the rear of the building, and that the design or that portion has a little more utilitarian feel. I would also mention, I think that the drive-through window has the same feel. There's pretty much a distinct, in my opinion, there's 2 sides of the building that have the wood treatments that soften the metal paneling design, and then there's the south and the east elevations, which have that more utilitarian design. They don't have any other treatments besides the metal paneling and some signage and canopies. What I think Mr. Kulak's comment was related to who's going to see, what is that going to face, who's going to see that. And while I appreciate that there's going to be some landscaping, mostly in the form of shrubs along the back of that building where outside of the sidewalk, those are going to be hollies and azaleas for the landscaping plan. And there's a few ornamental trees, so magnolias, which are flowering and will lose their leaves in the winter. I do think that that's the one portion of the building that does face the residences on Morgan Lane. And so, in my opinion, I think that's probably the most sensitive design portion of the building. While I do appreciate, the visuals from 22, the inviting visuals, I would like to see Starbucks consider the context of the site and the most sensitive neighbors being the residents, and maybe soften the architectural design at the rear and at the drive-through with something other than metal paneling, dark metal paneling.
It's a good suggestion. I could easily visualize moving some of that wood panel on the flank of the drive-through elevation, and then along the backside where it's kind of blank, maybe break up that massing with a little bit of that wood panel. I think that's where you're going with it. And
Yeah, I think that would, you mentioned before that the building kind of has been designed with this 3-dimension experience to it, and I think
it's
that would really kind of bring that together.
And I'll definitely make a strong suggestion and maybe redo the elevation to show some of that wood paneling, because I think I agree that idea of softening it up. I think it would do what you're saying by just taking some of that metal panel away from the east side, which is the drive-through side, and then the rear, which is the south side. Just break that facade up with a little bit more of that wood type of material instead of the metal panel.
I think that'd be helpful, thank you.
Yeah, I think so, I agree.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Are the logo on the drive-through side, I'm just struggling a little bit to understand really what the purpose of that is, considering it's facing against the traffic, and it's really only facing the residential road, I forget that, Morgan Lane.
Morgan Lane, yeah.
Can you just testify to whether or not those are interior lit, or are they lit, is that logo lit?
Yes, they're all internally illuminated with LEDs, and they do at night. They will glow. I think all those illuminated signs with the LEDs are much more even lighting these days, and they do provide a nice glow rather than being like really too bright.
And will that operate on a timer like the interior, or is that on all the time?
I would imagine most retailers would like to see it on like most of the night, but I don't know if you have an ordinance restricting that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add on one more thing from the planner's testimony? Questions? With looking at softening the rear of the building, could you maybe look at the roof drainage, the scuppers, and maybe bring those internal to help sort of soften that as well?
Sure. Yeah, I think I could do that.
Thank you.
Anything else on the board? All right. I'm going to open it up to members of the public that would like to ask questions on Mr. Horton's testimony only. I'll give everyone an opportunity at the end of the case to speak for or against the case, but right now we're going to ask questions on things Mr. Horton has testified. So if you can just come up, give us your name and address, and ask questions. Please, sir.
John Merton, 184 Adamsville Road, Bridgewater.
Would you spell your last name?
Merten.
Thank you.
All right. The lighting that you described is the only lighting off that will be what's on the building?
There's site lighting, which the civil engineer had described the last meeting.
So there will be lights in the parking lot,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right? Because there's also, at late night, when the crew cleans up, that's a long walk from the building to what looks like the dumpsters. So I would imagine for safety purposes, you're probably going to want to have something there for their safety. So I assume there's going to be a discussion about that at some point during this presentation.
Well, actually, the site engineer who will be coming as a
Okay.
next witness can
All right.
address that
That's fine.
specifically.
All right, thank you.
That's good.
Any other members of the public? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Horton. I'm now going to recall Robert Michello.
Mr. Horton, could you leave a copy of this exhibit, maybe for the members of the public somewhere, maybe on the dais to look at? Thank you very much.
Mr. Michello, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And you had been previously qualified. I'm assuming your license wasn't revoked in the last 2 weeks, was it?
No, it was not.
Good. So you presented the site plan to the board, and this board had numerous questions, comments, and concerns relative to site circulation, parking layout, and the function of the drive-through. Were you able to take under consideration those comments and concerns, and have you presented or submitted to the board and about to mark into as an exhibit a concept presentation, a single sheet plan that we would like the board to consider relative to revisions that we would propose to address some of these concerns.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
So would you mark that? I think we're up to A7.
Well, so the sign package in its entirety is A6?
Well, we never talked about the building signage,
Yeah,
so I didn't mark it.
we didn't mark it, okay,
Right.
all right, so, got it. So let's do this as A7.
So A7, for the record, is entitled Site Plan Rendering, has an original date of February 27th, 2024, with a revision date of March 8th, 2024. And I'll mark it with today's date for the record.
So if you would be so kind then, Mr. Michella, to walk the board through the changes that we are proposing with this concept plan, and in particular, focus on the concerns the board had and how you are addressing to the best of your ability those concerns in this revised layout.
Yes, so just to just for the reorientation again, north is actually down on the plan here, just for everyone's reference. Route 22 is on the bottom of the plan sheet here, and then Route 22 East is on the bottom of the plan sheet, and then Morgan Lane is on the left side or the east side of the plan here. And so we made a couple modifications to the plan that we're going to talk about this evening, and I'll take them from basically the Route 22 into the site, and I'll go around the changes that we we changed. So the entrance coming in off of 22, we actually widened that entrance out from 18 to 22 foot wide, and actually added a left turn and right turn lanes coming in off 22. So that this way, in terms of vehicles entering the site, they'd be able to split up, and if they wanted to go into the building itself, they can make a left and go to the parking area. And if they want to go to the drive-through, they would make a right to head to the drive-through lanes. And we'll talk about some more signage in a little bit that we're going to have for that. Once you come into the site, we basically heard the comments about the stacking in the drive-through, and we said we can probably push the drive-through lanes further back into the property because we had space back there to do that, and we were able to take the stacking that I had testified at the last hearing between 18 and 20 cars, and with the changes that we made, we actually increased the stacking amounts on the site here to about 24 cars based on this current revision. We did that by just moving the rear drive lanes further back to the rear of the condo lot line, which is the line in blue here on the plan. So we increased the number of stacking cars on the site itself. We are also showing on here a digital signage package that would be a way to identify if the drive-through lanes are full. And so the way this would work, and this is actually similar to what's actually been done at the Starbucks in Madison, so it's actually in use right now out there, and we're also looking to mimic that here with could be some refinements based on comments with the board. But you'll see these yellow dots on the plan here. There's one when you come in off of 22 at the right turn lane. We have two more yellow dots here that are at the drive-through entry lanes into the drive-through lanes. And what we're looking to do here is we would have built into the two drive-through lanes a loop detector, similar to what you have on our traffic lights, that will detect a vehicle that's stopped in that location. And when both drive-through lanes become full, the loop detector will detect the cars here at the end of the lanes, and then it would change the signage from open to closed for the drive-through. And we would also have a similar sign out here at the entry that says drive-through open or drive-through closed. There may be some additional wayfinding signs that if the drive-through is closed, they'll tell patrons, please come in, please park and come in and visit our cafe while the drive-through itself is closed. And we can work on the specifics of how that would be laid out. But the intent here is that we would have signage that would basically close the drive-through lanes for a period of time until the stacking is reduced and you can have additional cars enter into those lanes. It's very simple LED signage. It doesn't have to be anything too tall. It could be a couple feet high off the ground, typical driver eye height that you see here. And we actually have a picture of it. This is actually a picture of the one that's installed at Madison. That's actually out there now on the right-hand side of the plan. It's very, very simple, open, closed, in terms of what it says. Because we had to extend the drive-through lane to the back of the property a little bit, or the back of the condo unit, if you call it that, the lot coverage was slightly increased from where we were at the last hearing. We originally, and I'll just, for reference purposes, the prior application was 60.8% lot coverage. We presented at the last meeting 60.5% lot coverage. And with these changes to the drive-through lanes, we actually come in around 60.7% lot coverage. So it was a couple hundred more square feet that was added in order to accommodate the drive-through lanes. We also made some modifications to the sidewalks on the property. There was some talk about getting pedestrian connectivity to Morgan Lane. We did have a sidewalk along Morgan Lane already that came into the site, but what we did was we continued that with a crosswalk, added additional sidewalk along the drive-through lanes, past the dumpsters, and then connected that back out to the hotel sidewalk network. And then we reconfigured the sidewalk coming off the back of the Starbucks building, so it's straight now going to the patio area in the back. We also took some patio area away on the side of the Starbucks building that wasn't needed and added some shrubs there as well. We did add a couple more landscaping shrubs on this plan, more for basically reference right now. We added some shrubs in the island here between the two drive-through lanes. We added 3 more deciduous trees back here, and there's probably some other adjustments we can make to the landscaping, but we didn't get into too much detail right now with it until we get a little further along with the discussions with the board. But we did add some more landscaping on here.
So I just, as a design engineer for that entrance driveway off of Route 22, that would be wide enough as people are coming off Route 22 that they could say, oh, drive-through's, kind of crowded, let me turn left and get into the parking. They could be able to do that maneuver. They have enough space to do that.
Yeah, it's 22 foot wide, so there's enough space there. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, this was about 60 feet long. So you do have room for 3 cars to stack here, and you have room for 3 cars to stack on the left side as well. So there's adequate space there for cars coming off 22 to make that determination to go left or right when they get to that point on the site.
Then, in your opinion, the changes that you've made, do they improve the functionality and efficiency of the drive-through?
Yeah, by adding additional stacking on site, you could pick up 4 additional cars in the drive-through lanes in terms of the on-site stacking.
And the, I'll call it metering signage for the drive-through. Does that also help in terms of like one lane gets full, they could still use a second lane, right?
Yeah, well, it won't, yes, it won't. Yes, if the first lane becomes full, they can still use the second lane. We'll have to work out the logistics, but it won't trigger the drive-through closed until both lanes are completely full. If one lane's full, you still be able to use the other lane.
Right. That's what I want to make sure. So I don't have any further questions. We really are eager to hear from the board in terms of your thoughts about what we're proposing here in terms of, does this help address the concerns that the board and public had? And we'll hear from the public, but we think we have tried the best that we could to present to this board an alternative and better design for the drive-through.
Thank you for listening to us, and thank you for coming back with these preliminary designs. I had a question on the Madison location. Is that on Route 24, I'm presuming? What are they trying to prevent? A backup onto a main thoroughfare?
They actually, if I recall correctly, because this was just built not too long ago, so I don't have all the specifics of it, but it actually goes out to the parking lot.
Let's see.
It actually goes out to the parking lot. So so once it loops around, it's actually like an S circuitous type of drive-through. Then it goes into the parking lot itself before it goes out to.
And that location has a loop detector on it that will shut it off and turn the sign?
That I don't know for sure, but we're proposing something to that similar situation here.
Okay. All right. And this is real technology. This exists. This is.
You can go out to Madison and see it.
Well, there's no loop detector in Madison.
All right.
So I'm trying to get what's an analog site that.
Well, I guess from a loop detector standpoint, it's typical traffic technology they use for
That's my question.
gates that open and close. So it's all that typical technology.
So we don't need a supercomputer to run this thing. It's very feasible. It's not going to break on Starbucks. We're not going to have a problem.
As far as we know, they work for gate arms and gates that open and close all the time in commercial and residential settings. You have no reason to believe it wouldn't function here.
Again, I want to put this on the record, more from a legal perspective, because once the D1 is granted, you're out of the grip of this board, and I want to make sure that members of the public are safe. I appreciate you taking this into account. Looks like you've worked very hard on this. But again, and I know we're going to hear from a traffic engineer at another date, but I just really want to put on the record and want to let members of the public know that you've gone to great lengths here to make sure that this traffic does not spill like the Somerville Dunkin' Donuts right up the road that is every day causes a traffic hazard. The Somerville Zoning Board has no jurisdiction anymore because they approved it, and it's really, I don't know whose problem it is now. And I want to make sure that when we're done with this hearing and we vote, that we have the safest possible solution for members of the public to enjoy your Starbucks location if it's approved. All right, thank you.
Mr. Michello, the technology and the drive-up lanes open or closed signs, do they require any human intervention at all?
No, the way we're proposing it right now is it would be operated automatically with the loop detectors. And I will say this, and this is something we talked about internally, but there may be the ability for the folks inside Starbucks to actually close the lanes as well if they need to do that as a secondary measure, if they notice something that needs to be.
That's something that would require their intervention.
Right, correct. But the way it's made to work on a typical basis is the loop detectors will detect the cars once they're sitting there for 10, 20 seconds, and then the signs will change from open to closed.
Thank you.
Mr. Michelle, maybe you could just put on the record, because I'm curious, what is the idling laws in New Jersey, and how does that work? And I know you can't, tell someone not to idle their car, but
I'd have to go back and check.
all right.
I don't know them exactly off the top of my head.
I'm shocked you don't.
We can certainly.
You know everything else.
Mr. Chairman, have an answer to that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm more curious about a diesel truck coming through. There are residents, and if you're 20 cars deep in a drive-through, you could conceivably press that threshold or exceed it, and I'm curious about that. So,
We'll check on it.
thank you very much. Other members of the board?
Yeah.
I just have one thing. Actually, kind of related to what you mentioned before. What would like a delivery schedule look like with the large truck, with the way the site's laid out?
I believe that was touched on at the last meeting. Deliveries are off hours, and they typically would either pull up to the side or they can use the bypass lane for deliveries into the building. But they're typically off hours, usually in the evenings. I think it was evenings after the business is closed. And the driver has a key to the building. They can get access, bring the delivery in, and then go to the next destination.
But what about lighting for them since they come after closing?
That's usually just the small lights that are on the lights that are on the building.
That's sufficient for
That's
them?
usually sufficient for the drivers. Yeah, they don't need to have a large illuminated parking lot when they deliver.
So on that lighting question, just as a follow-up then, in terms of the standard light during business operation, what is the lighting like at the rear? And does this proposal, do you anticipate any impact that these revisions would have on site lighting?
No, we just have to make an adjustment to the light locations. There were two lights in the back of the drive-through lanes that were shown in where my fingers are here on the plan. They, of course, were a little bit closer to the building. Now we slid the lanes back. We have to move those lights back as well. And I do believe that if they're not already, I will stipulate to them having shields on this side because we only need to illuminate the light going this way for the drive-through area. So if that, we'll make sure I have shields on the back side of them. There's still lighting in the existing parking lot back here that we were going to relamp as part of the hotel application, and that was already on the prior plans. But that was what we were proposing for lights back here in the drive-through area. And then there's other lighting throughout the parking lot that I mentioned at the last meeting.
Are they going to bring the deliveries over on the other side to the service store then?
They would typically, if they came here, they would come down this walkway and bring it to the back door here. Correct.
I have one question with you mentioned there's a lot of wayfinding with getting to the drive-through, getting to the parking area. What about when someone's exiting the Starbucks, exiting the drive-through? Kind of, how are they being pointed out of the facility back onto?
That was mentioned at the last meeting, and we're going to take a closer look at that, but we were discussing internally about having some additional signage on the exit lane of the drive-through to direct vehicles back towards the entrance off of 22. So they had more room to merge onto 22 if they're going to 287. So we're going to actually talk about having that additional wayfinding signage interior to the site just to direct folks.
And so,
that way.
so that would be sort of like a uniform traffic control type sign that would say, if you want to go, I think it was to go east on 22,
Yes.
the better route would be go to the Houlihan's, to the main drive. That way, they have that additional area for weaving. So we'll have something that will look along the lines of a uniform sign that will be located and shown on our sign package just to emphasize that movement.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Couple questions. So I keep going back and forth. I'm looking, trying to really get a good understanding of what changes you made. It looks like, for layman's purpose, you basically made the backyard bigger, right?
First, yeah, if you don't, this is Exhibit A.
Yeah, I have it. Well, for the benefit of the residents and the, yeah.
Yeah, well, we just, yeah.
There you go.
So if you just look at the location of the drive-through here versus the location here, you can see we moved it further back closer to that rear lot line to pick up the additional distance that we need.
Right, great, I like it. So I also see, just to jump at the landscaping, I also see 3 trees on this diagram, the new diagram, whereas when we look at the old one, there were no trees in the background, in the backyard, is that correct?
Yeah, we're showing 3 more trees here. I might even be able to get 1 or 2 more in there. We're just graphically showing, hey, we have more room here to plant now. We can do that, yes.
Yeah, I think that's important because obviously we spent a few minutes talking about the back being visible from the residents in the back. So I like it. I think that's a good change as well. So then the last thing is then the roadway from the rear line, I guess the 200-yard setback line. You've extended it not only in the drive-through side on the east side, but also on the west side, right? You've added all that extra on the back. Is that
Yeah,
right?
you pick up,
Both sides.
you pick up distance here.
Yes.
You pick up distance here, basically. We don't pick anything up in the back.
You didn't change anything
Right,
there?
yeah.
Right, okay. And just last thing, point out to me you said something about the patio change. I can't, other than I can see the walkway obviously is now straight. What
I'll hold this
changes did you make on the walkway?
Let me just point out on A2 for a second. See this little area patio over here to the left of the service door?
Yeah,
If you look over here, we took it out.
okay,
Just to save some impervious coverage.
great.
And added foundation plantings, yes.
Right, now, you did not show landscaping in the island on the old plan, but you're showing it here, and you sort of made it sound like it's not official, but is it official, is it not?
I'm showing it here as a place to do some additional plantings. If the board, if everyone feels it's in agreement with that, we can certainly keep it.
Did the width of that change at all?
The island what we ended up doing was that island got slightly bigger because we actually reduced the width of the lane slightly. The lanes were 12 foot. I forgot to mention this. Thank you for bringing it up. The lanes were 12 feet wide. We took them down to 11.
Right, and then you added
Save a little bit of impervious coverage, and that island did get wider by doing that.
Great, yeah, okay, great, thank you.
And one other just general suggestion. Mr. Michelle, would it be possible in that rear area, there was a concern about visibility of the building from the residents, that we could add some evergreen trees as well?
Actually, I was thinking in this area here might be the best. And I say this area here, the area behind the drive-through, between the drive-through lane and the existing parking lot, to, instead of having some of the larger deciduous trees, put an evergreen screen in there. That'll be in the 8-foot range when it's planted, but it'll grow up over time and provide some additional screening. We do have, it's a little hard to see on here because it's grayed back, that double row of evergreens along the back property line. But I think adding another one here certainly wouldn't be out of the question to do that. I just thought about that a little while ago when we were looking at the tree, so we could certainly look to do that as well.
Can you address the access from Route 22 into the property? You said you able to widen that driveway,
Yes.
and that allows people to choose which direction they want to go, but how will they know? Is there going to be arrows painted on that new widened driveway? Or there some additional signs required? Not sure how that's going to work.
We are going to stripe the pavement with a left turn arrow and a right turn arrow. Ideally, they'll see when they come in here. They'll see the drive-throughs. They'll see the drive-through entrance when they come around. When they come into the drive lane here, and they'll know that the drive-through is on the right. Certainly, we can maybe look to do some identification sign down by when you first come off of 22 that says drive-through, keep right. Parking lot. Or
Right.
and we could do that with simple identification signage. Nothing that's too large.
And what is the length of that drive?
I think I said it was about 60 feet, 65 feet, so it can hold 3 cars in each lane.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Members of the board? Mrs. Amin, you good? All right, board professionals.
Can you just clarify I know you mentioned the stacking queue amount of cars had increased since the original plan. Can you just clarify where that's measured from, where the stacking starts at the order point?
So actually, I counted it from the delivery point here on the building, because you're going to have cars that are going to be waiting here to pick up their order. So you have, starting here, I measured it from the delivery window to the edge of the drive-through lanes here.
Do you happen to have a number for like the pinch point where the two lanes converge? You know, from that order point on? Generally, the order point, there could be one car at the drive-through window, and then, you know, one car at the order, no cars between them and the ordering point, simply because taking an order could take longer than anything else.
Good point. At the last meeting, the Starbucks representative that we spoke with said that typically the way they work is, I believe it was 4 minutes from the order point to the window. So they usually anticipate that because of that 4 minutes, most vehicles are going to be stacking both in the, you know, lane leading up to the delivery point, to the order point, and then around. But I can get you the number from the order point back to the island. I just have to do a quick calc on it.
Yeah, that's sometimes where the problems start, at the ordering point. So, this might be nitpicky, but for the signs that you're proposing that would the loop detector signs, the word drive-through, I would suggest that not in green, simply because when it says drive-through closed, someone's eyes may just see the green. So I suggest that maybe a white.
Okay, or maybe we can do both in red and green or something.
I would do both. Red is kind of going to be challenging. I would do both the drive-through and white light, and then open, closed, and green.
Well, yeah, that's fine. We can look at that.
Sorry, that's a little nitpicky.
No, that's fine. It's a good point.
Oh, it's a good point.
And then my only other question was, traffic can enter the site from Morgan Lane, correct?
Yes, it can.
And they can enter the drive-through from the rear portion of the site from Morgan Lane. They can get to the drive-through.
Just
Yes,
show them how the car would get to the drive-through.
yes. If I came in Morgan Lane, I'd make the right into the site. And I have an option now. I can go either way. I can make a right here and go around the parking lot to get to the drive-through, or I could continue through the parking lot, down past the Houlihan's, or excuse the Houlihan's, now it's going to be a tap house, and then come in the drive-through this way. So I can go either way.
Okay, so this is kind of where it gets, the loop detector signs get a little complicated, because traffic can enter the site from two other different parts where there aren't any signs telling you know that the drive-through is closed. And while it can take longer, so maybe the queuing would, you know, free up some space by the time it took you to get there, now there's cars at that right coming in from 22 that are going to see cars trying to enter the drive-through because they have no signage telling them it's closed, and they're going to be like, why can't I also enter the drive-through? So I don't know if that's something that presents a problem to the solution you've offered with the loop detector signs, or if more loop detector signs need to be managed in other points.
I think to that point, I think we could do a couple of things. One, I think when you're coming this way, you'll see if it's full. But if we need to, it's not hard to, you know, possibly add another sign or two around the site just to let people know what's going on with the drive-through. Given that these are digital and, you know, then they're not very large, they're easy to locate around the site.
And I don't mean to overcomplicate it, but drive-throughs are not only this. The signage doesn't dictate the human behavior. Human behavior sometimes trumps everything else. That's why you see Starbucks queues on 22. People don't care that there's traffic going 60 miles an hour past them. They'll wait in a 30-minute line for coffee. So I just want to make sure that it's you know, if we're going to present a solution, let's make it effective everywhere.
That is a well-taken point, which goes to how addictive Starbucks can be.
Not to say that using a drive-through is lazy, but how if you have two options, and regardless of the, you know, how full the drive-through lane is, some people will still choose to utilize it for whatever reason.
Another thing that we were thinking about too, and I didn't show it on the plan here, but I do want to point it out to the board, is we have I think if we were to actually, to prevent cars from stopping here in this area, I think if we were to stripe this, crosshatch it like you would see like an intersection type striping where you tell people don't block the box. You've seen that sign before. If we were to do that there also, I think it would just help from a visual perspective for people to realize, hey, I shouldn't be stopping here. This is not a, you know, and I think we have actually seen that in a couple drive-through places. They actually have it up in Chester where they've done that at the intersection there. But I think it's something that we can also, you know, add to it as well. It's just some additional, you know, directional signage on the property.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Burr?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, are there any EV spaces on this plan for the Starbucks itself?
The plan did not have it at the Starbucks. I'm just, so we were talked about actually adding one charger. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting because we only had a charger at the
I
hotel.
don't remember where it was
Yeah.
left off.
It wasn't, yeah, we forgot to show it, but we could add, we talked about adding one on the eastern side of the plan in the parking lot area over here.
Okay. And one of the other comments that was raised at the last meeting was in regards to the fire marshal's review. Did you have an opportunity from the last meeting? I know it was only 2 weeks ago.
Not yet.
Contact with him?
I have yet to call Mr. Scolari. I want to speak.
That's on
to
your
him about
to-do
that,
list?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And we heard about the additional, I think, additional landscaping that is now being proposed as part of the new rendering. You probably haven't done a full count of it, but can you give us a sense of how many more plants you think you can get on here, or is that still yet to be ironed out?
This plan had approximately 40 more shrubs, and we added 3 more deciduous trees, but I think there's still room to add some more. And if I go ahead and swap out some of the plantings over here for evergreens, I think you end up with some more ultimately. So we still have to work out that number.
And the board can expect an update at the next meeting on that issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that everyone is clear. So this is a one-page concept that once we get all the comment, we're going to do a complete, full site plan revision, full package. And that will be submitted by the end of the month. And that will then give you and the board ample time to review that full package. And
Yeah, there was also testimony at the last meeting that talked about breaking out the shrub count and the lighting, because I think 1.4 foot candles was testified, but it was an average calculation. And, I think it's important that members of the public kind of know, all right, an average is great, but, what's this specific location going to be?
We can
in terms of shrubs and in the lighting.
right, we can do that. That would be as part of the revised plan submission.
Sorry, Bill.
No problem. Lot coverage. You had mentioned in this plan you are going up slightly from your prior plan. I think 60.5, now you're at 60.7. The prior development, there was a variance granted for 60.8, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
So that's part of my question, is that 60.7% coverage for the entire property?
The 60.7 was for the entire property. It was looked at that way. And because the Starbucks property on the prior submission, I believe was just at 50%.
Can you use the one on the table?
Yeah, so the prior one for the Starbucks was for just the Starbucks lot was 50.6%.
So you're well under on Starbucks, but you're still in a variance situation for the entire site.
Correct.
And my question is, I can't help but notice for the entire site, it looks like you're overparked by dozens of spaces compared to what's required.
Yeah, I think it was about 40 spaces that were overparked total for the entire site.
I didn't do the math as far as what 0.7% represents on the entire site, but I wonder if there's an opportunity to reduce some excess coverage from the site to eliminate that variance altogether. And I don't know if you looked at that or if you can look at that.
I haven't done the calculation yet, but we can look at it and see if there's an opportunity to take away some parking spaces. And maybe that would be in the form of possibly banking them or something for future if it ends up being needed. But given that we're overparked, I think we can look to see what we can take off.
Stormwater management, we heard testimony at the last meeting on the stormwater plan. I suspect under the prior approval, you already submitted an operations and maintenance manual. That would need to be updated if it hasn't been already. as a condition of approval if this is approved. My question is, would you also agree to a potential condition to provide an annual certification? It may not be you specifically, but the applicant, to provide an annual certification that the stormwater on site is in fact being maintained, so that the township engineer can certify to the state that it is being done.
Yeah, no, we would, that's actually, yeah, that can be provided, yes. It would have to be provided.
That would be by the end of the year every year?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burr.
Mr. Chairman, I have one additional question. Does the fact that the hotel may or may not be built, we think it's going to be built, but we don't know what schedule he's on, in any way hamper the design that you presented today, either the sidewalk access, the traffic circulation access? In any way, does the absence of that thing being built hamper your design?
It really doesn't, because this road already exists around the site, because you come in from Morgan Lane already, and it exists to get to the existing restaurant building. So the work that will go on for the hotel really is focused in the back, upper, right-hand side of the property. So that really doesn't impact the development of the Starbucks property itself.
And in no way affects your design. So
No, it does not.
sidewalks have yet to be built, but they will be built in the future. I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
Right. I guess the only thing we'd have to look at would be the sidewalk here. I think the only difference would be that if the Starbucks goes before the hotel, that the sidewalk that's shown here on the plan for Morgan Lane would have to be built with the Starbucks. But you'd probably stop the sidewalk, over here, because you're not going to construct going across the road. There's no hotel there yet.
Right.
They have to come in and finish all that work. But you'd put in all the improvements that would allow the Starbucks to function as we presented to the board.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to open it up to members of the public that have questions on Mr. Moschello's testimony. Hi.
Hi, my name's Tina. I live on Adamsville Road. I actually worked at Drew University for 10 years, which is in Madison. And I actually lived in Madison and Chatham. And that Starbucks, if I'm not mistaken, is replacing a bank that used to be there.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And that's new, right?
Yeah, it is new.
How old is that Starbucks in Madison there? I think it just opened. It just opened, okay. I just want the board to know that that street that the Starbucks is on is a very quiet street. It's Main Street in Madison.
Tina, there'll be a time when you can come up and give statements to the board, but
Okay.
right now it's just questions.
Okay, so my question is, I guess, how long has that open and closed sign been up and working?
It's our understanding the Starbucks just opened. I don't have the exact time frame. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
More than a
It's
month.
months at most.
Okay. Okay. So that's my question. I guess my other question is, how many cars are going through that Starbucks?
I do not know that.
One of the things that we will be doing before the next hearing is we will be doing a complete, full-blown traffic analysis, and that will include both the external road system as well as the internal parking, circulation, drive-through use, all of that. So that will be submitted with the site plan submission by the end of this month. So we'll have a complete traffic analysis, and then we'll have a traffic engineer address the volumes and that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that is a very, it's a quiet street. So it'll be interesting to see what the results of that study are. I'm just concerned as a resident of Adamsville that we're going to be overburdened by this exhaust fume, which is going to be coming into our community, as well as the community right behind in Chelsea Gardens. So that's something that is going to affect us, and we're going to be here, living here, every day. Our children are going to be breathing in those fumes. Our children's school buses are going to be passing through that traffic, and it's a concern. So I'm just bringing that up. Is that a question?
Question.
I guess my question could be, are you concerned about us? That could be my question.
Yes, we are, and we are going to abide by all of the requirements of the Department of Environmental Protection and other rules and regulations. And quite frankly, because of how Starbucks operates based on the highway traffic, you're not getting additional pollution. It's just taking it from Route 22 and putting it into our site. And even then, the car efficiencies, all of that, in comparison to the volume of traffic on Route 22, I can't even comprehend that the order of magnitude difference that we're talking about. It's so negligible.
I guess the difference is that at this point, there's no drive-through there, and so I'm just wondering how you're going to address the no idling in the state. The law is no more than 3 minutes. At the last meeting, the representative Liz from Starbucks said that it takes 4 minutes to make a Starbucks coffee. Well, in researching all of this, it seems like other towns are seeing that it takes longer than
That
sounds
like a great question for the traffic engineer.
Okay, great. Well, that's my concern, and thank you very much. We appreciate the time as residents, you hearing from us, and hopefully you have some good results. Thank you.
Other members of the public?
Hi, Steve Minarvich, Minarovich, 52 Morgan Lane. My question is, first off, is it a done deal that it's an entrance and exit off of Morgan Lane? Why can't this be contained?
The Morgan Lane entrance exists there today. So and it was approved previously as a right in and a left out from the site.
Which doesn't work, but I know that's not for you guys, but that was pushed off on the police department to supposedly monitor, and it's never been monitored. I've lived there all my life, and I've never seen anyone pulled over for turning in that area. So you're saying you're not allowed to make a left from Morgan Lane into that parking area and then to come off. So you're encouraging people to come off of 22 two different directions.
We encourage them to use the first entrance off of 22. If they miss that entrance, they can use the second entrance, which is right in front of the Starbucks. And then then you have the third entrance. Well, you have the other way to come in off of Morgan Lane, which is the third entrance.
And do you really think it's a good idea to have 3 different ways to get to a drive-through?
And you're dealing with a site that has multiple uses on it, so you want to have, at times, you want to have multiple ways to get into the property to those different uses. And we talked before about having some additional signage to control the flow of traffic on site once they come in there.
I don't know if it's a question, but I don't see how this loop is closing off the lanes automatically is going to work, because if someone's in line and someone else is behind them and all of a sudden it goes from green to red or open to close, they're not going to move.
They wouldn't be in line because the drive-through would be full. They'd have to wait for, they'd have to.
But if they're coming from this way, they don't know that it's full yet until they're there.
Well, if they're coming around this way, they're gonna see that the lanes are full.
No, the other way.
This way?
In the parking lot, yeah.
We talked about adding some additional signage to deal with that.
But once they're there, they're stuck. They can't turn around, can they?
No, they're not. They have the opportunity, if they come through here and they see the drive-through's full, they can either use the bypass to go back around, they can drive back around the parking lot. There's plenty of maneuverability around this parking lot that if the drive-through is full, they can go and park their vehicle by driving around the parking lot to do that. It'll take them an extra, 30, 40 seconds to do that, but
while they're doing that, people are still coming in off 22 and maybe trying to go to the parking lot. So I just see that being a mass congestion, but that's not really a question. So thank you.
Hang on, sir. Let me just ask you something. You said that something about the police. You understand that they won't be able to make a right on Morgan Lane based on this plan, right? They'll only be able to make a left out of.
No, he said it's the existing entrance and exit that's there.
That's right.
And people made lefts and rights illegally all the time when Houlihan's was open.
That's what I'm asking you. Are you saying that you're seeing people exit Morgan Lane and make a right?
When Houlihan's was open.
Exit this lot and make a right? Is that what you're suggesting?
Onto Morgan Lane, yes. They did it all the time.
Did it all the time, okay.
And especially pulling in from Morgan Lane, making a left into the...
Well, that would be allowed, though. That would be allowed. You'd be able to go on Morgan Lane toward...
I have a sign right next to my mailbox that says no left turn into Houlihan's.
Right, that's what I'm trying to understand.
That was never allowed.
Can you testify to what he's saying?
Yeah, the turning movement, if you're coming Morgan Lane from, what was that 28? I'm sorry.
Yes.
20, from 28, the way this was designed was you're not allowed to make a left-hand turn into the property
Okay.
from
All right.
Morgan Lane.
I didn't,
That's the
I
way
didn't
it's-
realize
that's the
that
way it's
myself.
signed. Yeah.
Oh, all right, well, I could see why.
That was supposed to be the design. It does not work.
Right, okay. Thank you, sir.
And it'd be nice if the board could take that into consideration too, as maybe we can change that so it's not as easy to make these illegal turns. Thanks.
Do you have an answer for that, Mr. Smith?
So in terms of the access from Morgan Lane, we actually went through that whole design element almost 10 years ago now.
Planning board, correct?
Yeah, with the planning board. So that was something that we
Would this,
worked through.
this board have jurisdiction over such an agreement with the planning board that was agreed upon 10 years ago?
This board has very broad discretionary authority, both on and off-site, in conjunction with the grant of a use variance. So the answer is yes. If that's something that the board wants to see, the question that we have to answer internally is what is feasible? What can be done? How do we do this? And if we can do this, how we implement it in conjunction with our hotel and our restaurant, because they're impacted as well.
Absolutely. The good thing about time, it may not be the most convenient for the applicant, but it does give time to digest it and think about it. And, I think this is very applicable, what this resident brings up, and, it goes to safety, and I think that's our overriding concern and objective as a board is safety.
Understood.
I want to leave you with that. Any other members of the public?
Yeah, John Merton again, 184 Adamsville. So that exit or entrance off of Morgan Lane that you're saying that currently exists as fully developed, and was that part of what was considered development under the hotel plan? And is that what was mitigating that all these other things be grandfathered because of that development, of that road going in? I saw something.
Yeah, in other words, when we were in front of the planning board with the revised hotel,
Right.
that included the Goddard School, that driveway was the subject of an enormous amount of analysis, review, and modification. We did make a change relative to that driveway at the time that we had gotten the approval for the hotel and the Goddard School. Again, we will go back and take another look at it. But that was, believe you me, the subject of quite a bit of analysis in conjunction with that application.
The reason I asked that is multifaceted, but it comes to what Mr. Kulak had just raised as a concern in regards to whether or not the hotel may or may not be developed and the uncertainty of its status. So it raises up the whole issue in my mind about what happens with Morgan Lane exit entrance and who's responsible. That's being developed under this Starbucks plan?
No, that has always been, the access on Morgan Lane has always been present.
Okay.
This goes back now to when Houlihan's was built in the, I guess, 1990s or early 2000s. And there was a hotel proposal then. So this driveway on Morgan has 20-plus years of history.
Okay. Forgive me for elaborating on this, but I thought the whole development of this piece of property kind of was the hotel was being built as a precedent to having a diner being built, and that got changed due hardships, et cetera. But leave that to another discussion. Morgan Lane exit entrance right there. How is construction going to be done on this facility, on this property? Where's the construction access going to come off of or coming to this site?
Typically for construction, you have a driveway off of 22, which you can come in and out of, and you can actually come in off of Morgan, but you can only exit. Oh, do we agree to make that? Oh, I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
During construction, you closed Morgan Lane off, that access, so everything Today, the only construction is the renovation to the Houlihan to make it tap house. So right now, the only construction's there at the tap house. There's been the initial grading and clearing in the back for the hotel. Once the hotel is under construction, then
If it's ever
well,
constructed.
our owner, because he now owns that unit, they bought that unit, so they own that condominium hotel. So if they don't build it, then they've just lost a lot of money, a whole lot of
All
money.
right, so you said the owner, is it Bridgewater Realty or is it a different
No,
group?
Bridgewater Realty, so this is a condominium, so it works like any condo. You buy a unit instead of a lot. So the unit that is gonna be the tap house, that's owned by Bridgewater, but it's leased out to the tap house. The hotel has purchased their unit. They own unit two, that's unit two. They own it. So it's theirs, and if they don't build a hotel, they lost an enormous amount of money because they went ahead and bought the land. This Starbucks will again be owned by another Lady Bridgewater Realty SDNB.
So just so out of curiosity, if and when the Starbucks opens and that road there off of Morgan is needed to be accessible 100% for Starbucks, then how will construction to the hotel be accessible?
That's something that we're gonna have to work through. That's a good question, and that is something we could work, how
Well,
construction access works.
because I know now's the proper time to raise an issue, but everything on the site is convoluted in how it's being staged and processed, and I still wrestle with that, but
I
yes.
understand your concern, but the way you see the tap house
Yep.
renovation today, that work being done, once that tap house is completed,
Right.
you can actually see our lot, that grass area, and it's not hard to see how that construction would be somewhat similar to what's going on with the tap
Yeah.
house for Starbucks. The rear of the hotel, we'll have to talk to the client, and we're gonna have another conversation with the hotel guy, just to make sure we're all clear about how hotel construction.
So there's also a reference, though, just made by Ms. Michello, to lighting that would be in the back area provided from the parking area that the hotel development would be
No, that's on
provide.
our, that backlighting is actually on our.
Then I misunderstood what Mr. Michello said.
If you're talking about the lighting that I was, there's lighting that's going back here on the back end of the drive-through.
Right, but I thought it was, I was also concerned about, getting access to the back area there where the dumpster is, an area, and you had made reference to parking lot lighting that would also be additionally provided to support lighting back there from,
There was a whole lighting plan for the hotel.
Right.
That was approved previously, that it deals with parking lot lighting.
but if the hotel does not go forward, would Starbucks then perhaps pick that up and put it in as part of the safety concerns that we seem to be addressing?
You have to remember, there's existing lighting out there today, and then when the hotel comes in, they were going to upgrade all those lights.
Okay.
So when the Starbucks goes in, the new lights will be installed from Starbucks. When the tap house is completed, the lights in the tap house parking lot will be done for the tap house. And when the hotel is built, lighting for the hotel will be upgraded and completed.
It's a lot of if and whens.
Yeah, it's part of the construction process. These things take a little bit of
I
time, and you have to.
totally understand.
The construction will be phased accordingly. There'll be a construction manager that'll deal with that. We'll work with the, again, with the township engineer as part of the pre-construction meetings about the phasing area. That's all dealt with, when we're ready to start construction.
So you also had made reference to, at some point, there's going to be evergreens and other fauna in the back there of when the hotel is built, but you're also using that to describe how residents who are back there would be blocked and not having to see the Starbucks and other things there. That could be, if I understand, extremely contingent upon the hotel, and et cetera, et cetera. So is there any potential contingency that could be on the staging of development of this property, regardless of the hotel status? Because it seems to be an integral design here as a condominium to help everybody, and this seems like would help out Starbucks and neighborhood.
I think from the point of the Starbucks lot itself, I think you want to look at that lot and the development on that lot. You heard what the architect had to say about the architecture of the building and maybe making some adjustments to it. In terms of the Starbucks property, you want to focus on what you can do on that property when it's developed. And I think what we talked about tonight was adding additional screening in this back area over here, taking out some of those deciduous trees, adding evergreens instead to provide that screening at that point there. Then at least that deals with the Starbucks. You've got another few hundred feet to those residents, and there's an existing vegetative landscape back there now. It's not the greatest. It's been there for a number of years. I know there's some overgrowth that's happened out there, and that needs to be addressed, and it will be when the hotel is built. But I think that exists there today. And as long as you maintain what you can do on the Starbucks lot with this application, then the rest would happen at the appropriate time.
The appropriate time,
When it's constructed.
when the hotel is constructed.
Correct. As part of the hotel work.
And not before, considering all the things that have been developed on that property.
That is correct. It's part of the phasing of the construction on the property.
All right, I'll bring my other points and issues later on. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? All right, seeing none, what's your course of action?
Again, just to reiterate where we are. At this point, then, I think we've received more than sufficient feedback from the board that we feel comfortable proceeding with fully re-engineering the plan to address the concept that you see into a fully engineered plan that we are prepared to submit by the end of this month, March 29th. Included with that submission will be a complete traffic analysis, soup to nuts. We will also make revisions to the architectural plan as per the representations made to the board tonight, so that the board can see those revisions as well. Then at that point, this board would have what I would consider a full submission. And then we, Mr. Chairman, would leave it up to this board as to when you want to carry this to, and we'll proceed. But you'll have everything.
You're going to do traffic testimony?
Yes, we will have traffic and planning at whatever date. I think maybe the 23rd of April was bandied about, or.
Let's talk about that in 1 minute. Let's just recap, because I'd like to end meetings with what are the deliverables.
So yeah, the deliverables will have a complete full submission. Then the testimony at the next meeting will consist of the traffic engineer, the professional planner. Probably before the planner testifies, Mr. Michello will be back yet one more time just to walk the board through the revised full plan set. And I would trust that the architectural presentation wouldn't be necessary, because I think it'd be pretty self-evident about how we dressed up the sides, the back and the side.
Well, that was a good point. I hope we can do that. But also, I think speaking to the residents, I'm hearing a lot of concern about this hotel will never be built. And unfortunately, I have no jurisdiction, this board has no jurisdiction over that site. But I think if a table of lighting and a table of landscape and vegetative buffer,
that will be part
I think would
of
help
the
members of the public understand, you know, if this hotel doesn't get built, what are we talking about in terms of trees and shrubs and vegetative buffer? I think that would give them a better idea, because if I lived around it, I'd be annoyed. You know, if you keep quoting back to this plan, hey, this hotel is going to put in 150 shrubs, 200 trees, and they never show up, I can see their point.
I will, on the site plans, we'll break it out into the Starbucks condo lot and then the remaining lot, just so you have an understanding of the differences for the lighting and for the landscaping.
And the Morgan Lane issue, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a problem. And, you know, I see that you have a kind of an offset lane and you're trying to direct traffic left only. I mean, maybe there's a design element to that island where you can make it even more pronounced and add something to it, because I have seen people turn right. That's something maybe you can look at in your expertise.
We'll look at that with our traffic expert in, see what we can do. And
All right. So that concludes your testimony for tonight, Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it does.
April 23rd is not going to happen. We have 1200 Route 22. It's already been carried.
Okay.
We have April 9th open. That a little too soon?
Oh, no, yeah, the problem is twofold. One is all my Starbucks team is going to be elsewhere on April 9th. And second, it's not going to give, I don't think, your board professional sufficient time to do an analysis of the complete resubmission. So I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, if we could go to May.
May 14?
May 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my engineer, because he always takes umbrage at the deadlines that I set for him, is since we will be carried to May 14th, maybe we submit the first week in April.
All right, sounds good. Rich?
So, yep, well, I had a couple of questions for you. I just want to point out that when Mr. Horton testified, he didn't include your open-close signage, but those should be included in your
In the
total
full-
sign count when you talk about variances, okay? And would you just clarify for me the unit demarcation line on A7?
Yeah.
Is it the gray line or the blue line?
Talking about the condo line, correct?
Right.
I'll try to do it from here. It's the blue line on the plan here. This is the condo line that creates condo unit 3, where my pointer is here.
Okay.
The gray line is just a match, it's just a line breaking up the darker rendered area from the lighter rendered area, that's all.
Okay. All right, so for members of the public, this meeting's being adjourned right now. It will continue on May 14th at 7 PM in this room. There'll be no further notices from the applicant.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, Mr. Smith. All right, and for our next meeting, we have March 26th. We have a residential case. We have Chimney Rock Self-Storage coming back. And then also that night, we have CX Towers that are just coming in for scheduling. So again, I'll repeat, we have a residential case first up, Chimney Rock Self-Storage at 7 PM in this room, March 26th. The case you all heard tonight is coming back May 14th, 2024, 7 PM in this room. So with that, there's no other board business. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Mr. Wiley, can I have a second? Second. All right, Mr. Fresca. Thank you, everyone. Good night.